Hello, film friends, and welcome. This is Stacia, and today we are going to talk about the 2008 Oscars. And I would say the most shocking thing about the 2008 Oscars is it happened 15 years ago, and the movies that it celebrates, the movies that came out in 2007, came out 16 years ago. And to me, that is truly shocking. It's truly one of those where does the time go moments. And I just can't believe it's been that long. But sit back, relax, and let's talk about the 2008 Oscars. So the 80th Oscars happened on June 24th, 2008. It took place at the Kodak Theater, the theater that was specifically built to host the Academy Awards, and it was hosted by Jon Stewart that night. This was the second time that Jon Stewart had hosted, and of course, he was riding high on his Daily Show fame. The ceremony lasted 3 hours and 21 minutes. It was shown on ABC, and around 32 million people watched it that night in the US, which was actually, I think, about 20% lower than the previous year. But could you imagine that many people watching the Oscars nowadays? This was very much the year of the films There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men. They had the most nominations that year. They were both tied with 8 nominations, followed by 7 nominations for Michael Clayton and the movie Atonement. No Country for Old Men ended up winning the most awards that night. It won 4 awards. There Will Be Blood ended up winning 2 awards. And I would say by and large, of any Academy Awards that I've watched, this probably is the one where you go, yep, those should have been the winners. Those should have been the nominees. There are no glaring admissions of movies that year. No, well, this person should have been nominated in my mind. But, tell me if you think anything different. I think they did a pretty good job that year. And looking back at it 15 years later, I mean, There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men, they're classics, even 15 years later. And that's the true judgment of a movie, what you think of it years down the line. Does it hold up? And I would suggest anybody watch those 2 movies, and they are just brilliant movies. Some of the best works by the Coen brothers and Paul Thomas Anderson. They are 2 crowning achievements in filmmaking, and the rest of the nominees this year are some truly great films. I would say the 2008 Oscars really did a great job of, what you think the Academy Awards should be. So let's start off with Best Picture. Best Picture was still at the 5 nominees in the Best Picture category. The nominees were No Country for Old Men, Atonement, Juno, Michael Clayton, and There Will Be Blood, which are all 5 great films. And if you haven't seen any of them, you should truly just stop right now and go watch all those movies. Do it. Stop right now, watch all of those movies, or any one of those movies that you haven't seen, or make a movie night of it, or those will be the movies that you watch this next week. And the winner that night for Best Picture was No Country for Old Men, and probably the top 2 movies that year in the nominees for Best Picture were what was going to win, either No Country for Old Men or There Will Be Blood. And of course, No Country for Old Men came on top. But that is not to take anything away from the other films that were nominated. They are truly cultural landmarks. I would say the most forgotten one out of them is Michael Clayton, which is just your nice old school 1970s, no thrills thriller. And it's really, really good movie, and probably the most overlooked, but is one that is definitely that you should watch. And then we have the nominees for Best Director. These nominees include Joel and Ethan Coen for No Country for Old Men, Julian Schnabel for The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, Jason Reitman for Juno, Tony Gilroy for Michael Clayton, and Paul Thomas Anderson for There Will Be Blood. you will notice in the nominees for Best Director, it is leaving out the director of Atonement, who was Joe Wright, and Julian Schnabel was nominated for The Diving Bell and Butterfly instead of Joe Wright for Atonement. I don't think this is necessarily a comment on Joe Wright. His movie was nominated for Best Picture, while The Diving Bell and Butterfly was not. But I would say The Diving Bell and Butterfly, still a really good picture, and probably would have been nominated for Best Picture, you know, if the Academy had expanded it to 10 nominations instead. And this, you just have the luck of the draw where Julian Schnabel, who is like an underground, he was, or still is, he's still alive, as an artist and a sculptor. He was good friends with Jean-Paul Basquiat back in the 80s, and he has directed a few films on, you know, through the years, and they're very much experimental art pieces if you want to look at his movies that way. So I would suggest, along with the 5 Best Picture nominees, The Diving Bell and Butterfly is also a must-watch for film fans. And of course that year, the winning directors were Joel and Ethan Coen. They did not split the winners between, you know, something winning for Best Picture and Best Director that were different movies. They won, and I would say No Country for Old Men is truly, you know, besides probably Fargo, truly their best work. That is my opinion on that. I believe the right directors won. Probably still, again, this was the fight between No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood. With, if we knew who came in second place, I would suspect that Paul Thomas Anderson came in second place. So the next category we have is Best Actor. So the nominees in this category were Daniel Day-Lewis for There Will Be Blood, George Clooney for Michael Clayton, Johnny Depp for Sweeney Todd, Tommy Lee Jones was nominated for In the Valley of Elah, and Viggo Mortensen was nominated for Eastern Promises. And of course, the winner in this category was Daniel Day-Lewis for There Will Be Blood. I would say Daniel Day-Lewis as Daniel Plainview is one of the memorable acting roles of all time. He truly deserved to win. He is truly an astounding actor. I would say if you really wanted to go with a criticism or somebody who could have been nominated for the 2008 Academy Awards but was left out, it would be Josh Brolin for his character in No Country for Old Men. But all 5 of these are 5 performances. If you've seen Michael Clayton, you'll know that George Clooney does a really strong, good performance. It is understated. It is the type of acting that is not based on affliction or having an accent or, you know, gaining or losing a lot of weight. It's truly, I would say, the hardest type of acting to get noticed would be when somebody is just straight up playing somebody without a crutch to act upon, where you can't see the acting on the screen but doing a very good job. It is what I would say Paul Newman excelled in his career, and why he was nominated so many times for his acting. I would say George Clooney is of that acting style of, you know, I'm not putting on airs and I'm not showing you the acting on the screen. I am just giving you a damn good performance of a man. In the other vein, we have Johnny Depp, who is a very good actor. I have liked him from the beginning. He really puts his acting out there, and you look at him on the screen and you go, now that's acting, which is very different from what I described of what George Clooney does in Michael Clayton. Tommy Lee Jones is in the same vein, I'd say, probably as George Clooney, where it's just a really damn good performance, and, you know, there's no crutch to stand on that shows people that's acting. And the other one, Viggo Mortensen. If you haven't seen Eastern Promises, It is a truly good movie. You should definitely go out and watch it. David Cronenberg, it's not his typical horror movies from the past. It is a damn good movie and probably one of the forgotten ones of this year. And when you're making your movie night list for this next week, that should definitely be on there if you haven't seen it. And of course, Daniel Day-Lewis won for playing Daniel Playview, as he rightfully should. I think everybody agrees that that is the right person that won. If you don't agree with that, leave a comment down below and tell me who you thought should have won, or if you think they left out a nominee, let me know. We'll discuss. So the next category we have is Best Actress, and this is comprised of 5 nominees as well. We're going to start with the first nominee, which was Marion Cotillard, who played Edith Piaf in La Vie en Rose. Next nominee was Cate Blanchett for Elizabeth, the Golden Age, where she played Queen Elizabeth I. We have Julie Christie in Away from Her, and her character was Fiona Anderson. And we have Laura Linney in The Savages, and her character was Wendy Savage. Then we have Elliot Page, who at the time was Ellen Page, in her role as Juno in the movie Juno. And Marion Cotillard goes on to win for her role as Edith Piaf in La Vie en Rose, which is another performance that, as soon as I saw it in the movie theater, I was like, well, there's your winner. And hers is not that subtle performance. It is one where you can see all the acting on the screen, and she knocks it out of the park. It is a wonderful, wonderful movie if you haven't seen it. I know I keep going on about if you haven't seen this movie, it's wonderful. But like again, I said, this Oscars is by far the one where you're like, every movie hits it. Every movie hits it out of the park. So take any of the nominees that you haven't seen, just pull up a list of the 2008 Academy Award nominees, or if you'd like to call it the 80th Oscars, pick any of those movies, watch it. I guarantee you will love every single one of them, and every single performance that is nominated that year is a knockout. But Marion Cotillard in La Vie en Rose is just, it will rip your heart out. She is so good. So the next category will be, of course, Best Supporting Actor. The nominees are Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, Casey Affleck for the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, where he plays Robert Ford, and that is a mouthful to say. We have the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman in Charlie Wilson's War. There is the late, great senior member and the oldest nominee that year, Hal Holbrook for Into the Wild, and Tom Wilkinson for Michael Clayton. And of course, in his iconic role as Anton Chigurh, Javier Bardem wins this award. And he is fantastic. I can't say enough about him. People might say it is a haircut that won that award, but once you get past the haircut, the shocking character, just look and development and the acting, he's perfection. He is perfection, and one of the most, without doing anything except killing people, outlandish, one of the scariest characters in all of filmdom, without this being an out-and-out horror movie. I loved it. No Country for Old Men is just, the book it's based on is great. If you haven't read it, read it. Cormac McCarthy is fantastic. The film, it's fantastic. It hits every note. It hits it just right. So now we are on to Best Supporting Actress. And the nominees in that category this year were Tilda Swinton for Michael Clayton, Cate Blanchett for I'm Not There, which she was a double acting nominee that year. We have the legend Ruby Dee for American Gangster. We have first time nominee and youngest acting nominee that year, Saoirse Ronan for Atonement, who would, of course, go on to steal our hearts several more times and get several more acting nominations. And then we have Amy Ryan, who is probably best known for her guest starring role in The Office, but she was nominated for her role in the Ben Affleck directed Gone Baby Gone. And of course, Tilda Swinton went on to win for her role in Michael Clayton. And if you are more familiar with Tilda Swinton, this is one of her performances that is probably the most straight-laced performance that she has ever put on screen. And she is fantastic in it. Michael Clayton, like I said, probably the underrated movie of this year. Tilda Swinton is fantastic in it. So those are the main nominees and their winners. I will go on to say that the screenplay nominations, that is where No Country for Old Men won Best Adapted Screenplay. Of course, like I said before, this was adapted from a Cormac McCarthy novel, and he also wrote the screenplay for it. So, Best Original Screenplay went to Juno, written by Diablo Cody. And I would say that is the right call. I mean, she really laid her writing style out there. It is brilliant in its vernacular and its structure, and really made Diablo Cody a star. The other notable thing is that Ratatouille won Best Animated Feature, which, come on, it's, years have passed, and it is a truly classic movie that holds up. A lot of people who were kids during that time, that is one of their favorite Disney movies of all time, and it is a great movie and deserves to win Best Animated Feature. And then the last category I really want to hit on is Best Original Song. That year we had the Happy Working song, which was in the movie Enchanted, and Raise It Up from the movie August Rush, So Close from Enchanted, and That's How You Know from Enchanted. A lot of songs from the movie Enchanted. But there was one other song nominated. It is a song called Falling Slowly, and it is from a movie called Once. That goes on to win, and it should have won. It was meant to win. If you haven't heard the song Falling Slowly, it is a fabulous song. The longing of that song, the meaning of that song, the singing of that song is just, it is heartbreakingly good. And the movie Once is an excellent movie that everybody should rush out to see. Like I said, once again, the nominees and the winners of the 2008 Academy Awards, it did something right this year. It really, really hit it out of the ballpark in my estimation. Like I said, if you don't agree with this, please share with me. Please write down below the comments the movies or the winners you think were left out, who you think should have won this, because in my opinion, it just doesn't get any better than this with the modern day Academy Awards. Thank you for watching. I would love for you to tune in and watch again, but thank you for listening, and join me next time.